Discover the incredible moment a solitary farmer transformed life with a heartwarming promise. In the dusty village of Hopewell, Thomas, a humble farmer in his late 40s, stood with his hands calloused from years of labor, overlooking the field that had been nurtured by his ancestors. His heart ached with a love so deep it tethered him to the land. This was not merely soil and crops, it was a legacy. Yet, clouds of despair gathered as the weight of impending foreclosure pressed heavily against his chest. Each day brought whispers of neighboring farms shuttered and families losing their land, leaving Thomas's own home teetering on the brink, but there was a promise that echoed through Thomas's mind, a vow from his father during simpler times. "We share the harvest, son. It's our duty to help those in need." This guiding principle ignited something in him, a hope wrapped in the kindness of community. He could barely hold the tears back as he recalled countless cold winters when neighbors had warmed his heart by sharing meals, love, and laughter. The thought of turning his dwindling crops into a community food program felt daunting yet necessary. Word spread quickly of the wealthy developer's intentions to raise the farmland for a shiny new commercial complex. As townsfolk gathered, emotions swirled like the dust kicked up by the dried-out earth. Some saw only opportunity, while others clung tightly to the land's agricultural roots. Thomas felt his spirit lift as he gained support from his friends, their loyal spirits joining in what felt like a collective fight. But as days turned to weeks, betrayal seeped into the hearts he cherished. Familiar faces grew distant, swayed by promises of quick riches and empty dreams. As uncertainty winced in the dim light of his barn, Thomas rolled up his sleeves. He gathered whatever little he had left to share: tomatoes that could barely stand on their own, green beans that would soon wither but still had a spark of life. Fueled by his father's legacy, determination swelled as he transformed his modest harvest into meals for local families struggling to make ends meet. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the deadline for foreclosure loomed closer, a fire ignited amongst the townspeople. Whispers ignited a movement. They rallied around the remnants of Thomas's farm, revealing the spirit of neighborly support that had always breathed life into the town. Would that spirit be enough to confront the powerful developer threatening to take everything he held dear? Just as Thomas ready to unveil his community-focused mission, a figure from his past emerged, casting a shadow over everything he had worked for. Memories flooded back, mingling with renewed tension. Could he trust the very hands that had once stood beside him? As the stakes climbed higher, Thomas faced a clash of hope and betrayal, leaving readers poised on the edge of discovery. What would he choose at the crossroads of loyalty and sacrifice? The air crackled with anticipation, a reminder that in the heart of Hopewell, community was being redefined, one choice at a time. Thomas stood frozen, heart racing, as the figure stepped closer. It was Daniel, his childhood friend, whose betrayal stung like a cold winter breeze. Years ago, they had shared dreams of a future filled with crops, laughter, and a community thriving together. But ambition pulled Daniel down a different path. Now, he stood there, dressed to the nines, the glint of wealth evident in his eyes. "Thomas," Daniel called, a charm heavy in his voice. "I never thought I'd see you in this kind of trouble. Let me help you." Help? Did Daniel truly mean it, or was he merely here to sweep in and take over? The memories of their friendship clashed with the reality before him. Anger flickered, barely contained. "Why should I trust you?" Thomas retorted, his voice shaky but firm. "You were ready to sell the land when the developer came knocking." Daniel's expression shifted. "I had to think about my family," he replied, his tone defensive. "You need to understand. This place, it's dying. It can't just survive on hope." Thomas felt the heat flush through his body, his mind racing. "What if I told you that hope is exactly what we're turning this around with?" We can bring the community together, feed those in need, unite every soul in Hopewell. He gestured around him, taking in the dusty fields filled with half-grown produce and the neighboring homes where families leaned out their windows, curiosity piqued by the commotion, but Daniel shook his head, a look of pity mingling with regret etched on his face. You're fighting a losing battle, my friend. You can't change what has been set in motion. Something inside Thomas snapped. Maybe so, but I'm not giving up without a fight. As the confrontation hung thick in the air, townsfolk began to filter into the barn, drawn by the tension. Their nervous whispers transitioned to an outpouring of encouragement. "We're with you, Tom," shouted Martha, the elderly widow who had known Thomas since he was a boy. Others chimed in, their voices rising, creating a wave of warmth that pushed against the chill of despair that Daniel's presence brought. In that moment, Thomas recognized the powerful pull of community. It surged in waves around him, reminding him of his father's promise. Just days ago, he had felt utterly alone, but now, hands clenched and hearts united, it felt as though they could face anything. "Look around," Thomas exclaimed, his voice steady now. "This land means more than money. It's family, love, and our memories." Daniel remained standing still, caught between his past loyalties and the lure of wealth. But could he change? Deep down, Thomas hoped for that very transformation. With a heavy sigh, Daniel turned to leave, mumbling something inaudible. As he exited, a part of Thomas felt a flicker of hope for his friend. Perhaps the fight wasn't just for the farm but for their friendship too. The clock ticked down, and as they gathered to share meals crafted from the remnants of Thomas's farm, conversations sparked to life. Laughing, crying, and sharing stories, their connection grew stronger than ever before. He realized that the very act of feeding those in need was feeding their spirit, too. Yet, loud knocks echoed against the barn doors, their rhythm foreboding. Hushed voices claimed the attention of the crowd. Thomas felt a pulse of dread crawl up his spine. Were they here to halt that movement he had begun? Who would stand by him when it mattered most? The air was thick with uncertainty as the townspeople turned towards the entrance, eyes wide and hearts racing. What could be waiting for them beyond the cracked doors? The barn held its breath, a fragile pause hanging in the air. Thomas's heart hammered in his chest as the knocks came again, louder this time, a thunderous demand for entry. Tension twisted like a knot in his stomach. "Tom, what do we do?" whispered Martha, her voice trembling. The gathering of townsfolk shifted uneasily, exchanging glances that flickered with a mixture of curiosity and fear. "Let us not panic," Thomas replied, squaring his shoulders. "We've faced enough already. Whatever comes through those doors, we'll face it together." He stepped forward, moving to the large wooden door, its creaking hinges echoing through the thick atmosphere. He looked back at the crowd. "We've got each other, and that's what matters. Right?" A hesitant cheer rose from the group, hopeful, steadfast. They nodded, hands clasped, forming a wall of belief that radiated energy into the room. With a deep breath, Thomas turned the handle and pushed the door open. Sunlight poured in, momentarily blinding him. Squinting against its brightness, he saw shadows looming in front of the barn. His breath caught as he recognized the figures. It was the developers, flanked by law enforcement, wearing expressions that suggested they had come to reclaim something they believed was theirs. "Thomas Lewis," the lead developer shouted, his voice laced with authority. "You've been served a notice of eviction. This land is scheduled for major development. Step aside, and we need to involve the courts." Gasps rippled through the crowd, a wave of disbelief crashing against the shores of their resolve. "Eviction? You can't just take this from us." Thomas's voice rose above the murmur, fueled by determination. "This land belongs to the people. We're building something more than just a farm, we're reigniting our community." The developer sneered. "Community? This place is nothing but a rundown town with no future. You can't fight progress." The words stung like a slap. But amidst the despair, Thomas felt a spark ignite within. "You may think that, but you don't know us. We're the heart of Hopewell, and you can't take that away so easily." The crowd bristled, uniting behind him, their faces painted with defiance. One by one, they stepped forward, embodying the very essence of what Thomas had fought for their collective spirit. Martha raised her voice, an elderly beacon of hope. "This land has been our home for generations. It's not just soil, it's our memories, our love, our lives." The developer hesitated, taken aback by the growing resolve, but his confidence quickly returned. "You'll have your day in court," he replied with a mocking smile. "But don't say we didn't warn you." As they turned to leave, a sense of urgency washed over Thomas. He knew this fight was just beginning. The community stood ready, but would they have the strength to withstand the push of progress? "Don't give up," he shouted after them, fear mingling with strength. "We will fight for Hopewell." Cheers erupted from the crowd, a symphony of newly ignited courage. But as the developers walked away, Thomas felt that old fear creep in. This was not just about the land anymore. It was about them. As he turned to face the townsfolk once more, he saw their faces illuminated with a fiery determination, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a larger conflict. "Let us gather, plan our next steps," he called, rallying them. Hearts raced, spirits soared, but the storm they faced was looming. And as the sun dipped lower in the sky, the shadows lengthened around them, ominous reminders of what was at stake. What would it take to unite them against such a formidable foe? Would hope be enough to ignite a revolution in Hopewell? The sun sank lower, painting the barn in hues of gold and crimson, as the townsfolk gathered in a tight circle around Thomas. He could see the echoes of fear sewn into their faces, but even clearer was the spark of determination. He could feel it. It was a current, alive and pulsating. "All right, everyone," he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "We need to strategize. We can't just wait for court dates and watch them bulldoze our dreams away." Martha stepped closer, her eyes wide. "What do we have to lose? They can't just take our heritage like this." "No, they can't," Thomas agreed, feeling the fire in his gut grow stronger. "But they'll try. We need to show them what Hopewell stands for. We need to show everyone." With his words, he could feel the crowd tightening around him. He could see hope starting to sprout. They exchanged glances and nodded. This was more than just a fight for land, it was a fight for their identities and futures. "Let us brainstorm," he urged. "What do we have that they don't? We've got heart. We've got history. And we have each other." The townsfolk murmured their agreement, a chorus of support building in volume. One of the farmers, Daniel, stepped forward. "What if we organized a community event? We could gather stories from the elders, showcase the history of this land. Make it personal." "Yes," Martha added, passion lighting her face. "A festival. We can invite the whole county. Show them how much this place means to us, how much we mean to each other." The crowd erupted with excitement. Ideas bounced back and forth, local music, a harvest showcase, and talks about the history that intertwined them all like roots tangled beneath the rich soil of Hopewell. Thomas felt each suggestion energizing him. "We'll show them that we are more than a name on a title. We're legacy. We're love. And we'll make them see it." As laughter and chatter filled the barn, Thomas began to sketch out a plan, jotting down ideas and suggestions on a piece of old cardboard he found. It was a small reminder of their sweat and labor, of everything they built together. But in the back of his mind, shadows loomed. The developers were not just faceless enemies, they were armed with resources and influence. Could they truly stand against such power? As the urgency brewed within him, doubt tapped at the edges of his resolve. As the meeting continued, he glanced out of the barn doors. The sunset had burned into a deep orange. A chill danced through the air, suggesting a storm might come soon. But in that moment, Thomas felt the warmth of his community next to him. Their resilience wrapped around him like an old, trusted quilt. "Let us meet again tomorrow, and we'll set this plan into action," he encouraged. Hopewell 1T back down. "We'll rise from this." Cheers erupted once again, filling the barn with renewed energy. But as they began to disperse, the weight of what lay ahead settled on Thomas's shoulders. A battle was brewing, and the stakes were high. Could their hearts outshine the looming power of the developers? He took a deep breath, staring at the last light of day fading behind the horizon. Uncertainty clawed at him, but one thought anchored him steadfast: they were ready to fight. What unexpected alliances might emerge in their battle? Would hope become their strongest weapon, or could despair creep in and dim their flame? Morning broke over Hopewell with a soft light that felt both promising and heavy. Thomas woke up with a knot in his stomach. The meeting from the night before replayed in his mind, the laughter and hope mingling with lingering uncertainty about the fight ahead. He rose early, the kitchen empty except for the familiar creak of the wooden floor beneath him. The sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the old family photos that lined the walls, generations of faces radiating warmth and pride. They had all worked the land, poured their love, sweat, and tears into it. He felt that same devotion swell within him now. Thomas poured a cup of coffee and stepped outside, inhaling the crisp morning air. The field stretched endlessly before him, a tapestry of greens and browns, alive with the promise of a new day. He had to believe they could protect this, that their roots ran deep enough to withstand any storm. His mind wandered to the festival. They needed to move quickly. Word would spread, and if done right, they could turn their plight into a celebration of resilience. Thomas pictured the townsfolk coming together, families sharing stories, laughter ringing out, and the smell of fresh pies wafting through the air. He could envision children playing, the sound of music filling the atmosphere. This was their chance to show hope was tangible. He grabbed his old notebook and scrawled down ideas for the festival, lost in the creative flow. Before long, the bright blue sky began to fade into a deeper shade. The promise of a busy day loomed ahead, but it wasn't just any day. It was the day they would begin to unite everyone. By mid-morning, the barn was alive with chatter. Faces lit up with excitement, parents encouraged their kids to express their thoughts, and memories began to flow. Stories of grandparents working the land, and tales of community celebrations echoed off the barn walls. There were moments of laughter, tears, and shared steely resolve. Every voice mattered. Daniel rallied the farmers, dividing up tasks and organizing volunteers. Martha led the charge in collecting stories and history for display, her enthusiasm infectious. As Thomas looked around, he saw all different kinds of people, young and old, coming together with one goal in mind. It warmed his heart. But beneath the surface, he couldn't shake an unsettling thought: what if the developers tried to sabotage their efforts? Would they face hostility or threats? It was hard not to feel the weight of the impending struggle looming over them. After all, this was more than just land to them, it was home. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the barn, they all sat in a circle, sharing more stories. Old Mr. Jacobs spoke of the first harvest festival he remembered, how it brought everyone together despite hard times. Each tale felt like glue, binding them tighter as a community. Yet, as Thomas listened, he could see the worry etched into some faces, the shadows of doubt creeping back. What if it's not enough? He thought. Feeling that unease pulse through the group, he stood up, taking a deep breath. Let us make this about more than just Hopewell. Let us make it a stand for every small town threatened by those who don't understand. Their eyes met his, uncertainty giving way to determination. As they began to disperse, laughter echoed in the barn. But deep down, he wondered about the price they might pay for standing their ground. Would their bonds of community be enough when the real fight began? And what about those who might choose to oppose them? The sun set with its last glimmer, and Thomas felt an unfamiliar tremor of doubt creeping back in. What would happen when the devourers arrived? Would they still have the strength to confront the powerful forces seeking to tear them apart? The sun rose the next day with an intensity that seemed to match the urgency in Thomas's heart. He sat at the kitchen table, the sound of the radio humming softly in the background. News of the developers had already begun to circulate, coupled with unsettling whispers that sent ripples of anxiety through the townsfolk. Each report felt like a tightening grip around his chest. Hopewell had weathered storms before, but something about this felt different. That he took a moment to breathe, letting the fresh aroma of coffee settle over him like a comforting blanket. Memories of last night's gathering filled his mind, the resolve they had shared. Yet, the dark clouds of doubt hovered close. What if their determination wasn't enough to stand against the looming threat? The fight wasn't just about them anymore, it was about the heartbeat of a community, and with each tick, he felt the weight of every life and story resting on his shoulders. As Thomas stepped outside, the sun warmed his face while the chill of morning lingered in the air. He marched towards the barn, knowing he had to send out a call to action. It was time to solidify their plans, to push past the uncertainty, and find the courage to resist. Inside, the air crackled with anticipation. Daniel, Martha, and a handful of others buzzed with energy, discussing logistics and ideas for the festival. He felt a swell of hope as he listened to snippets of conversation, the sound of laughter mingling with plans for food stalls, games for children, and an area dedicated to the stories they'd gather. "Listen up, everyone," Thomas began, his voice steady but tinged with urgency. "We need to mobilize quickly. We have to let the world know who we are and what we stand for. This festival has to be bigger than we imagined. It isn't just a celebration, it's a stand against the forces that want to erase our home." "Right." Martha chimed in, her eyes sparkling with zeal. "Let's get the younger generation involved. Have them share their own stories. We can create a digital archive while we're at it. The more they realize their history matters, the more they'll fight for it." Nods of agreement erupted around the barn. Thomas felt that familiar fire reignite within him, but then, just as quickly, a shadow passed over Daniel's features. What if they see this as a threat? What if they come after us before we can even get started? The room fell silent, each one wrestling with that unwelcome thought. What if they faced backlash? What if standing together led to lonely divisions? Thomas took a deep breath, glancing around at the faces staring back at him, their trust hanging on his words. "If they do come, we'll show them our strength. This land isn't just soil, it's our home. We will protect it. Together." The room erupted with murmurs of affirmation, their collective emotions mixing into a powerful current of determination. They worked tirelessly, every hour packed with laughter, stories, and the occasional coffee break. The barn buzzed louder with each passing day, transforming into a hub of creativity and unity. Each task became a step closer to sealing their bond against a common threat. As evening approached, Thomas stood back and watched the team moving with a sense of purpose. Joy filled the air, and yet, a flutter of worry clung to him like a shadow. The groundwork was laid, but would it hold up when the time came to face the developers? Just then, a loud shout broke through the air. The group turned to see young Josh running toward them, his eyes wide with excitement. "Mr. Thomas! You need to see this." Curious and uneasy, Thomas rushed over. "What now?" As he reached the barn door, he caught sight of a truck rumbling down the path, its logo emblazoned on the side, a name that made his heart drop. Would this be the beginning of their fight? Or the moment everything began to unravel? The truck slowed to a halt, dust swirling in its wake as everyone gathered at the barn entrance, faces painted with a mix of excitement and dread. Thomas felt his heart race, anxiety prickling his skin. He stepped forward, trying to catch a glimpse of what was happening. The driver emerged, a middle-aged man with a sun-weathered face, and an air of authority that instantly created tension. He strode confidently towards them, a clipboard clutched tightly under one arm. Thomas recognized the logo on the truck. It was connected to the corporation that had already sent waves of unease through Hopewell. "Can I help you?" Thomas called out, trying to mask the uneasiness in his voice. The townspeople stood behind him silently, waiting with bated breath, the man glanced at him, a smirk playing on his lips. Name S. Carter. I'm here on behalf of Greenfront Development. His words hung heavy in the air, the familiarity of that name churning a storm in Thomas's stomach. Carter glanced around, taking in the gathering that bulged with energy and life. I see you folks are planning quite the festival. Just wanted you to know, he paused, dramatically, that this land is on our radar. We're moving forward with our plans, and frankly, anything you do here won't change that. Whispers rippled through the crowd, confusion squeezing hearts into tight knots. It felt like they had been punched in the gut. Angry murmurs began to rise, but Thomas raised a hand, desperate for calm. He needed to think, to act wisely. What makes you think we'd just sit by while you bulldoze our community? Thomas stepped forward, feeling a rush of resolve. He had fought for this place all his life. His voice trembled, but only from passion. Carter shrugged, unfazed. It's just business. You can't stop progress. People like you, he gestured dismissively around the crowd, are always going to be nostalgic, holding on to the past. But times change. Those nostalgic people have stories, Martha yelled, her voice rising like a flame. This isn't just land to us. This is history. Our memories. Our families. At her words, the group began to chant softly, Hopewell. Hopewell, their voices swelling collectively, a united front rising before Thomas. He felt a spark igniting in his chest. Carter's smirk faded, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. He glanced over his shoulder as if reassessing his place amidst the defiant crowd. This isn't over, folks. Trust me, you'll hear from us again. He shot one last glance before climbing back into the truck. As the engine revved and the truck began to roll away, the cheers of the crowd flooded the air. But even in their victory, Thomas felt an unsettling weight in his stomach. The showdown was just beginning. They may have sent Carter packing today, but he knew the corporation wouldn't just retreat. That he turned to the group, heart pounding. We need to accelerate our festival plans. This is our chance to show we won't be silenced. We need every single one of you here. Let us rally our town. As they all dispersed, Thomas caught a glimpse of Josh's face, who looked both inspired and worried. Do you think he'll come back? Josh asked softly, the question hung between them, ripe with uncertainty. Thomas placed a reassuring hand on Josh's shoulder, but deep down he wondered. What if today's victory was merely the calm before a storm? The stakes were rising, and their world was shifting. The battle for Hopewell was only just beginning. What sacrifices would they have to make to protect what they loved most? The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the town square. Thomas stood near the center, surrounded by townsfolk who were still buzzing with energy, yet a palpable tension hung in the air. The festival they'd planned to celebrate their community felt heavier now with the looming threat of Greenfront Development. As people started to disperse, Thomas could feel the whispers of doubt and fear lingering. He took a deep breath, looking out at the familiar faces of friends and neighbors. Each one of them carried a piece of Hopewell in their hearts, and he couldn't help but feel the weight of their shared burdens. Martha! He called, spotting the woman who had been so fierce in their defense. She turned, her brow furrowed with concern. How do we make this festival work? How do we fight this somehow? She stepped closer, eyes glistening with determination. We have to show them who we are united. We need to use every part of this town to tell our story. We can have booths, games, share memories, honor our history. Yes. Thomas felt a rush of inspiration. A living testament to our past. But we need more than that. We need to rally every person in Hopewell. Let them know this isn't just a party, it's a stand for our future. As they discussed ideas, the town's energy shifted from fear to a growing excitement. Word spread quickly through the crowd, each conversation igniting new thoughts. People began organizing, brainstorming together under the dimming light. Plans for everything from homemade pies to storytelling booths emerged, and with every shared idea, hope began to flourish. That evening, Thomas went home to a quiet house. The comforting smell of dinner wafted through the air. His mother was busy in the kitchen, humming softly. She looked up as he walked in, her face lighting up momentarily before concern clouded her eyes. "How did it go?" she asked, setting down a wooden spoon. "Carter showed up. He's from Greenfront. They're planning to push us out," he said, meeting her gaze. Her expression darkened, but Thomas continued. "But we're going to fight. We'll show them what Hopewell means to its people. We're organizing a festival, and it'll be our stand." As he spoke, his mother's posture shifted. "You're going to need support, Thomas. Maybe it's time to talk to your father. He has experience with working in community projects. He might have ideas." A pang of sadness hit him. His father had been gone for years, but Thomas remembered how passionate he was about the land and the people. He could almost hear his father's warm laugh mingling with the sound of rustling leaves. "Yeah, I could use his guidance," Thomas whispered, a mix of emotions swirling within him. Later that night, as he lay in bed, Thomas's thoughts churned. Courage was bubbling under the surface, but what if it wasn't enough? What if the festival wouldn't be enough to protect their home? Determination gripped him. "I want to let this happen," he promised himself, clenching his fists. The next morning, Thomas made a plan. He would visit the site where the corporation wanted to break ground. He needed to see it for himself, to feel it every inch and strengthen his resolve to fight. This land wasn't just dirt, it was history, life, dreams, and memories. As he stepped outside, the sun peeked over the horizon, casting a golden hue over Hopewell. With each step towards the site, his purpose grew clearer and more intense. This battle was about to turn personal. Little did he know, lurking in the shadows, someone was watching him, their intentions unclear and mysterious. Would they be friend or foe? As he approached the edge of the development site, a figure stepped out onto the worn path ahead. Thomas's heart raced. Who was this new player in their fight for Hopewell? The figure stepped forward, revealing a tall woman with a wide-brimmed hat casting a shadow over her eyes. She moved with an air of confidence that piqued Thomas's curiosity. He squinted against the morning light, trying to gauge her intentions as she approached. "Hello there," she said, her voice steady but soft. "I've been watching you." Thomas felt a rush of discomfort. "Watching me? Why?" "Because," she replied, a small smile breaking the seriousness of her demeanor. "I recognize that look. You're ready to fight for this place, aren't you?" He opened his mouth to respond, but the words caught in his throat. Could this stranger truly understand the weight he carried? "I'm Jenna," she said, extending a hand. "I grew up here, like you. And I know what it means to love a place like Hopewell. This isn't just about land for us, it's about our lives." His heart pounded. This was the kind of ally he needed, someone who shared his passion. "Yeah, I'm Thomas. We're organizing a festival to show everyone what Hopewell stands for. We need as much support as we can get. Count me in." "But there's a lot more at stake here than just a festival," she said, her expression turning serious. "Greenfront isn't just another corporation. They've got plans to change everything about our town. I've seen their tactics before." "What do you mean?" Thomas felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The weight of the words hung heavy in the air. "They'll try to divide us. They'll promise jobs or money, but at what cost? People need to understand the real fight. If we show up united, we can stop them." Thomas nodded, his resolve hardening. He was ready to gather every person in town, but now he knew he had to dig even deeper. "You said you've seen their tactics before. How can we prepare?" Jenna's eyes flicked back towards the edge of the property, the outline of barren trees and broken ground where their beloved fields once thrived. "We need to educate the community. Bring in those stories from the past. Help people remember what we're losing, what it truly means to be from Hopewell. Let us use that festival to bring everyone together, not just to celebrate but to rally against this threat. The chill in the air surged with a newfound optimism. Together, they could ignite a spark in the community that would resonate far beyond one festival. As they brainstormed strategies, Thomas felt the pieces start to fall into place. Let us make sure that everyone knows this isn't just another celebration. We're not just honoring our history. We're fighting to keep it alive. We've got to appeal to the heartstrings of everyone in this town, he declared, a fire of conviction igniting in his chest. Overwhelmed with emotion, Jenna looked at him, eyes gleaming. You have a natural gift for this, Thomas. Your father would be proud. The mention of his father sent a wave of warmth through him. He realized that even in memory, he felt anchored. They began to discuss living history booths, where older generations could share their tales, and interactive exhibits that would leave no one untouched by the spirit of Hopewell. Just as they finished outlining ideas, a rustle in the bushes nearby caught their attention. Thomas turned to see a small group of townspeople approaching, drawn in by the passionate exchange they shared. Jenna stepped forward, taking charge. We need you all, and we need you now. Hopewell is at risk, and together, we can change everything. Thomas felt a rush of excitement as the group gathered closer, faces blurred with curiosity and concern. They were ready to listen, to be a part of something bigger, but as he caught sight of a shadowy figure lingering at the edge of the group, a chill ran down his spine. Who was that, and what role would they play in this battle? A new wave of uncertainty washed over him. Would they be an ally, or was this encounter about to take a turn for the worse? The fight for Hopewell had just begun, and it was only going to get more complex from here. The festival day arrived, and Hopewell was transformed into a vibrant tapestry of colors, sounds, and aromas. Tents fluttered in the breeze, filled with local crafts, fresh produce, and nostalgia dripping from every corner. Laughter bubbled up as children ran around, their joy echoing against the backdrop of shimmering lights hung from the old barn. Thomas stood in the middle of it all, his heart swelling with pride. It was more than a festival. It was a manifestation of everything they had fought for, the spirit of Hopewell alive, kicking, and shining. Jenna walked by, her smile infectious, ready to kick off the day's activities. Are you ready for this? She beamed, eyes sparkling. Thomas nodded, but deep down, a current of anxiety swirled just beneath his joyful facade. Let us make it count. As the crowd grew, old stories unraveled, and memories were shared, an unshakable bond began to form. Townsfolk embraced one another, shared their roots, and spoke with such passion that the air itself felt charged. Martha stood at a booth, her voice steady, reciting tales of generations who tilled the land, stories that surged warmth through every listener. Thomas watched as people began to gather closer around her, eyes glistening with emotion. It was clear, the festival was more than a gathering, it was a movement. Hours passed, and just when Thomas felt the energy reach its peak, a voice broke through the noise like a cold wind. It was Carter. He stepped into the festival, flanked by developers, their presence stark against the celebratory atmosphere. Gasps rippled through the crowd, faces falling as dread washed over them. Carter raised a hand, attempting a confident smile that felt almost rehearsed. Looks like you've turned this into quite the affair. His gaze traveled over the bustling crowd, calculating. But make no mistake, this doesn't change anything. Laughter faded, replaced by uneasy whispers. Thomas stepped forward, heart pounding, fists clenched. You think you can waltz in here and bully us? This place is our lifeblood. His voice cut through the tension, reverberating with fervor. The townsfolk rallied behind him. Hopewell! Hopewell! They chanted, a wave of solidarity washing over the festival. Carter staggered back slightly, caught off guard by their defiance, frustration flickering in his eyes. You think nostalgia will stop progress? It's more than nostalgia, Jenna shot back, stepping beside Thomas. This is our home. We are not just memories, we are a community of living, breathing hope, and you can't erase our stories. Those words ignited a flame of defiance. Thomas could see the determination among the townsfolk grow, eyes sharp and fierce, their collective hearts beating as one. "How many of you here know the stories of this land?" Thomas challenged, pointing at the people gathered, fists lifted high. Each hand rose gingerly at first, then confidently. "This land isn't just a piece of property to us. It's family, laughter, love. It is what made us who we are." Carter's facade crumbled, uncertainty stealing over him as he looked at the resolute faces before him. "You'll regret this. Hopewell is not immune to progress." But Thomas felt a current of triumph surge within him. "We'll prove that community is stronger than greed." Cheers erupted, echoing off the walls, a symphony of hope. Thomas felt the weight lift slightly, and as he gazed at the crowd filled with unwavering spirit, he knew they had sparked something deeper. The festival continued, laughter ringing out like bells, drowning out the shadow of looming threats. They had become a united force, woven together in resilience. With each story shared, laughter exchanged, every seed planted in the ground, more hope blossomed. As night blanketed the sky, twinkling lights illuminated the faces of the townsfolk, each shining brighter than before. The warmth of community had wrapped around them like a safety net, forging bonds of loyalty stronger than steel. Later, as the festival drew to a close, Thomas and Jenna stood on a wooden stage, where they had just shared their gratitude and dedication to protecting Hopewell. The crowd cheered, a chorus of hearts bound together. "Today, this community stood as one," Thomas said, voice steady. "And as long as we breathe, we'll protect our stories, our home, our future." Jenna looked at him, her eyes glistening. "It's a seed planted today. We'll nurture it, watch it grow." In that moment, Thomas felt a tapestry of legacy and hope entwined within his heart. This was not just a festival to celebrate survival, it was a rebirth. Later, as the last guests trickled away, exhaustion swept over him. But just outside the barn, Daniel waited, a thoughtful expression darkening his face. "Hey, Tom," he began, hesitating. "I'm sorry for everything. I didn't realize how much we could lose until today." Thomas felt the old hurt stir deep within but chose to let the past slip away. "It's okay. What matters is what we do moving forward. It's about coming together." Daniel nodded, a flicker of understanding sparking between them. "I want to help." Hopewell was not just a name, it had grown into a spirit, a resilient anthem that filled the air. The shadows of doubt may still loom in the distance, but Thomas knew they were ready to face whatever came next. United, they would stand forever and always. As the last firework faded into the night sky, Thomas made a silent vow. In his heart, he carried the legacy of his father and all those whose voices echoed in the fields. Hopewell was worth fighting for, and they were more than just a town, they were family. Patience would be key, and love would be their strongest weapon. With each moment lived together, they would grow stronger, rise higher, and protect the roots that ran deep in Hopewell, their home. And so, dear friends, join Thomas, and the entire community of Hopewell, as they embark on this journey together. This is a story still waiting to be told, filled with transformation, resilience, and most importantly, love. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss these exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of standing together, so let us build this community up.